So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm a community manager at Flatiron School, and I'm very excited to have you join us for our Coding for Beginners workshop. Today, we are going to focus on HTML and CSS, some of the foundations of web development. So if you're here, maybe you are curious about coding, whether you're just learning it as a hobby or a new skill, or maybe even a career change. This is a great place to get started. So today we're going to focus on some of the essentials of web development, as I mentioned. And by the end of the session, you'll have a solid understanding of how to build a basic portfolio website, right? That's what we're building today, Enoch, website.
That is.
Awesome. So I've got Enoch here with us. I'll have him introduce himself in just a moment, but he is one of our incredible software engineering instructors at Flatiron School. Enoch has years of experience and is here to guide you step by step through this process. So whether you're brand new to coding or just looking to try something new and have some fun, you are definitely in great hands here. So a couple quick notes before we do dive in. Definitely feel free to ask questions as we go. So this is a space to learn and explore. So please don't be shy. Feel free to drop questions into the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to them as things are appropriate. And again, just checking the chat throughout the session. I typically like to drop useful links or resources into the chat. So definitely make sure that you keep your eyes over there. And if you do have a preferred code editor, I think a lot of our instructors like VSCode. Feel free to open that up and code along with Enoch, and we'll have some fun with it. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to you, Enoch. So let's get started and see how we can roll our sleeves up and write some code.
Hey, everybody. Hope everybody is having a great Wednesday. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. So, I am kind of doing something a little bit different in this. We're going to be using a README Markdown. I love the structure of this, and so our agenda today is we're going to talk about a little bit about software engineering, like what do we do, what the tools that we use, what we're going to be learning today. Uh, so software engineers, we design and create computer systems and applications. Uh, in the course, you'll learn about software engineering in the browser, but there's a lot of different directions you can go as a software engineer. But by having a really strong foundation in software engineering, it really helps you kind of branch out. So our goal is to make sure that everybody has a really strong foundation. So what we'll be learning today is, of course, fundamentals of coding with HTML and CSS. Uh, so computers, we write code to computers to communicate our instructions for what we want the computer to do. So when we look at the browser here, our instructions for what we want the computer to do a lot of times revolve around like HTML, CSS, maybe some JavaScript, etc. And all of it kind of works together in order to give you applications on the web. So in this case, HTML is going to be kind of our hypertext markup language that we're going to be using to kind of create the document of our web page. So it's going to kind of structure it in ways like, hey, this is a header, this is a paragraph, etc. So what we can see here is it structures and the content of a web page. It's composed of using tags. So we can see like HTML here, which is kind of like declaring our page as an HTML page. Our head tag here, which is kind of our metadata. It's kind of like how we're wanting to set up our page that we don't directly see as a user looking here, right? It's kind of what's happening behind the scenes that you can see things like right up here on the tab for using like a title, but the body is what we're going to be focused on the most. That's going to be what we view on the page. But what we can see is the tags have opening and closing that wraps around like what kind of tag it is. Whoops, wrong button. I gotta watch my double clicks here. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It styles the content defined in HTML. So like colors, fonts, layouts, and it can be applied in three different ways. So we can use inline styles. So for example, if I had like a paragraph inside that P tag, aka something that looks like this, but a P, I could have an inline style that says, hey, this color should be green or something along those lines. That would be an inline style. Internal styles is with a style tag in the head portion of it. And we'll see the structure here in a minute. Actually, I could show you right now. Let's do that. So just to kind of show an example, in VS Code has a lot of really good shortcuts that you can use. And a lot of it, like you'll learn it as you go. But if you type in like HTML:5, you can click it, and it actually creates the bare bone of the HTML website for you. And what we can see here is we have like what kind of doc type. Our HTML page is going to be in English. We have our head tag here. Here's some metadata. So it makes it kind of like mobile friendly, gives you the ability to make it mobile friendly. Uses UTF-8 character sets. There's a lot of character sets out here, but here in America, we use UTF-8 quite a bit. And then we have the title. So title here says document, and title is actually so title here would be 30 seconds of knowledge. So, but if I change this to, so if we had document here, let's just open this up. If I right click this and we do, let's just open with live, well, we could open with live server, but just to show, if you open it, you can reveal in Finder or you can reveal in Explorer if you're on Windows. I'm just going to do it that way so you can kind of see it. But if I double click this, you can see document right here on the tab here. I can change it and say portfolio website and save it and refresh the page. And now it says portfolio website. So we can see there is something that is viewable as a user, and that's the tab, which is shown by the title. Cool. Now, inline styling, if we had a paragraph here, so a P tag, what we can see here is we have opening and closing P tag. This right here is a closing tag. So closing tags are a lot like the opening tag here, but we have a forward slash right in front of the tag name, which is going to close out the tag. So this is how our editor knows, hey, we're going to start here and end here. Our paragraph is going to start here and our paragraph is going to end here. So a lot of them will have a wrapping tag around them. And I'm just going to type in lorem here and hit tab to create some text. And if I refresh, you can see like there's our text right there. Now, inline styling, I could say, okay, style equals color red, like that. And if I refresh the page, now our text is red. So this is what it means by inline styling, is that we are inside of the HTML and we are styling that particular tag. So we can make like another P tag here. We'll make another lorem. And we could say, okay, well, this one is going to be the color blue. And if I refresh that, I have a red one, I have a blue one. Cool. Okay, so we do have inline styles. We also have internal styles, and this is using the style tag in the head. So what that looks like is if I wanted to create a H1. So an H1 is a header tag. It starts off with like H1 and it goes all the way down to H6. So let's just take a look at that real quick. So H3, H4, H5, and one more, 6. Cool. So what we can see here, what does everyone notice about the headers? So H1 to H6, what does everyone notice right here? And feel free to put it into chat. So as we go up in number for H's, the text gets smaller, yeah? But we can completely override that. So let's use a style tag to do that. So it says to put it in the head, right? So we're going to say style. And then if we look here in our notes, here's our CSS syntax. So I'm just going to copy the syntax and paste it. And so selector, there's 3 major ways that we can select an HTML tag. So we could say H6, which would be our selector. And this will select every H6 that we have in our HTML. And so we can style every H6 together. So in this case, what if we want to make our font size something, I don't know, 46 pixels? I think that's pretty big. There we go. And now we just kind of broke the rule of an H6 where we made it the biggest header right there. But every H6 now will have that same styling. So if I make another one and refresh the page, now we have 2 H6s that has the same styling. So this is the second way that we could make a how we can input styling into our page. The one that we're actually going to be using is our a link. So let me just comment all this out. So a comment means that the computer will read it, but it will completely ignore it. So in other words, all this is wrapped in a comment. So it's not going to run any of this. It's going to say, hey, this is a comment, let's skip over it. Okay, so the last part was an external style sheet via a CSS file. Now we have a CSS file right here, it's styles.css. And in order to link that in, we're going to say link CSS. And we're just going to add an S here. So the link tag right here does not have a closing tag because it does not wrap anything. So it's a self-close tag. So the link is the relationship is a style sheet, and the reference is styles.css. So it's going to point here. And since we had commented this out, let's add our H6s back. Oops, let's do this. And then we'll do this. There we go. Okay, so we have our H6s back and they're back to being really tiny. So if I go to style CSS here, I can do the same thing that I did in the head tag. The difference is sometimes when you have too much in one file, it gets really big and bulky. And separating things out is a really nice thing to have. So this is why we would want to link versus having a style in the head tag right here. So let's do that. Let's do H6, same kind of format. So we have H6, and we're gonna say font size is gonna be 46 pixels again, which is really big. And there we go. So we can see like it connected to the file, and we're able to make that font a little bit bigger. Cool. So there are a lot of HTML. Uh, so we have our headers, we have our paragraphs. We also have dividers. So that would be your divs here. Dividers are kind of a way that you can divide your HTML into like different things. Like maybe this part is for like, here's your image gallery, but underneath it, you have um, maybe articles or something. Div is kind of more of a generic divider. You do have other kind of dividers as well. Like you have section, which is, I'm going to make this its own section, is a way of kind of thinking about it. You also have article if you actually want to write different kind of articles, uh, etc. You also have image tags that you can do. So let's find a image real quick. We'll say puppy image. All right. Let's go to images. Okay, that one's really cute. We'll use that one. Okay, copy image address. So if we want to add like an image to our file or our HTML document, we could add a source and we could source it. And usually these are huge. So you can see like in orange, this is the entire image address. Um, and then we could say alt. Now, alt is for screen readers. So if somebody had accessibility needs, then they could hover their mouse around the page. And if they hovered over the image, it would tell them what it's an image of. So image of a puppy. Usually you don't have to say image of because the screen reader will automatically do that. So we could say cute puppy. Here we go. So if I refresh, we can see the cute puppy right there on the page. Cool. So that's a few of the HTMLs. Now, as far as CSS goes, there are a lot of different properties that come with CSS as well. So we've saw font size. We can also do font family. I think we could use like cursive and then sans serif, for example. And now we have like a different font there that we can use. So we have cursive. Uh, so that's just with fonts. Um, and then we also have what we call the box model. Has anybody ever heard of the box model? So the box model is where you have, let me annotate real quick. You all will have to let me know if you can see my boxes. Can everybody see the box? Give me like a plus in chat if you can see the box. That would really help me out. All right, perfect. Okay, so we have content, which would be kind of like what's in the middle of the box model. And then from content, that space between content and the outline of the box, the outline of the box is the border. So we can think of that like, if you wanted to add a border to something, then that would be the outline there. The space between content and that border would be the padding. So this is how much space we want in between the border and the content. And then anything outside of that is margin. So margin is kind of like how much you want to push away from maybe like another element or something along those lines. So this is what we call the box model when it comes to styling. So for example, if I wanted to make my H6s have, well, let's take a look at this. So we can see they're kind of pushed away from each other. If I right click my browser and go to inspect, I can open what we can see as DevTools. And if I hover over, actually let me move this down. That is really up there. Let me close that. There we go. Okay, so if we hover over the H6s here, we can see kind of like this color code right here. We have like some blue, we have some orange. Um, so what that is we can see right here that we actually have some default styling already given. And this is kind of what we overrode. So what you can see right here that font size is kind of crossed out because we overrode it with our own font size. And that's kind of what we did. So HTML does come with default styling. Um, so display block here means it takes the entire page. But I could actually make this, I don't know if I can do it directly in there. Actually, we could just add another one of these. Oh, well, maybe not that. Let's see here. Can I add it in there? No, it doesn't like me. Okay, that's okay. But we could actually add inline block to this if we wanted to and say, so it's display inline block. And what happens here is you can see it moves it all to one line, right? So if I wanted these two H6s to be on the same line, but pushed away from each other, then I could add a little bit of margin to it. I could say margin, maybe I want margin to be on the right. So I could say margin right. Let's move it away by, I don't know, like 10 pixels, for example, and refresh the page and you can see it moved over slightly. Maybe we want a little bit more. You kind of, when it comes to styling, you kind of just got to play around with it and see how how it goes. But there we go. Now we have the H6 on the same line. And if we hover over it, you can see like it doesn't span the entire width of the page. So block spans the entire width of the page. Inline block does not. Now, some other things that we can kind of notice with our default styling here is that we have some margin already. So if we wanted to have no margin, we could say margin 0 right here. And now it has absolutely no margin. It does have like the content, which is right here, and a little bit of padding, but it does not have, you can see it brushes right against, the content brushes right against our image here. So that's margin. So margin means that we're pushing away from other elements. Now, if I was to remove this and let's go ahead and remove this and go back to our default margin here. We could also add a little bit of padding if we wanted to. So if I wanted to add like a little bit of padding to the left and to the right, you can best see this if there's a background color. So let's add a background color to this. Let's just make it light, or hold on, light blue. So you can see our block here. Let's actually add inline block back. I think that would be better. Display inline block. There we go. Okay, so we can kind of see based on the background color that we have absolutely no spacing inside of our elements here, our H6s. And we can actually use padding to add a little bit of space inside. So if I was to say, padding. Let's say I want like 5 pixels all around my text here. So that'd be padding top, padding bottom, padding left, padding right. Then I can just put 5 pixels, and now we have a little bit more space here. Let's add 7 pixels. That's a little bit better. And so you can see like the element kind of grew a little bit, but that was because it was adding enough space to hold the content. So margin pushes away from elements. Padding adds spacing inside the element. And then of course we could add a border if we want to. We could say border. We could say, let's see here. Let's do 1 pixel solid black. And then you can see now we have a border around our box here, just like that. So while HTML is kind of creating our headers, our paragraphs, our images, our CSS is going to help us style it and make it look good. Any questions so far?
Not seeing any yet, but as questions come up, folks, definitely go ahead, drop them in the chat, and we got loads of time to take any questions.
All right. So I did come prepared with a cheat sheet. And the cheat sheet is because there's a lot of things that is going on in our portfolio, but we're gonna take it slow. We're gonna talk about each piece that we're adding. So let's get started with our portfolio project. Okay, so for our HTML, I'm going to go ahead and undo. Are there any CSS IDEs that auto-generate HTML code by dropping figures, text into a screen? Like any, are you mentioning like any kind of CSS, HTML dash CSS tags? Are are there any? Okay, give me just a second. HTML code by dropping figures pics into a screen. Are you talking about like designing with a UI where you can just drag it onto a UI? I believe there's quite a few of them that you can use. I think is it Figma? I'm wanting to say it's Figma, but I don't really remember. Yeah, collaborative interface design tool. So this is like uh, a design tool that you can use in order to help design your websites and get them kind of the way you want it to look. Uh, and I believe it does generate like some of the CSS and HTML as well for you once you get it designed. Is that kind of what you're looking for? Yeah, no problem. I do believe that's what UI UX designers use, like Figma or something like pretty close to what Figma is. Cool. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna undo this because that's a lot to delete. There we go. And we're gonna take out all this HTML and we're gonna do things one thing at a time. Cool. So I do have all the HTML already here, but we're going to take things out one thing at a time. So we already have most of this already. But the first thing that I want to grab is this header tag, and we're going to take a look at this. And do take note, this is without any of the styling. Also, I'm going to delete styling here. Okay. So this is our header. And just like the dividers, the sections, the articles, we also have a tag specifically for a header. And let's just see what this looks like right here. So the header contains a H1, a nav tag. So nav is for navigation. It helps screen readers like let people know that, hey, your navigation bar, for example. We have a UL, which stands for unordered list. We also have an LI, which stands for list item. And we have an anchor link. And when we look at the anchor links, we can see the underlines here, and these are actual links. We'll talk a little bit about the pound sign here in a minute when we start talking about like IDs and classes, etc. But just know that these are going to be linked internal in our website so that when we click one of these links, it's going to take us down to a part of the page where like the about part is, or the projects is, or the contact is, for example. So that's the header portion of our HTML. And what we can see is it's not styled at all. We're going to get all the HTML on there first, and then we're going to start styling it. We're going to start making it look good. So now we're going to grab this section. And what we can see with the section is it does have an ID associated with it. And we're going to talk about that. So anybody know what ID is short for? So an ID is short for an identifier. And for HTML, it's just like you would think. It's a way to identify a certain spot in HTML. Now, IDs have to be unique. That means since this ID about is attached to this section, no other HTML inside of our HTML file here should have the same ID. It has to be completely unique. So what we can see here, and let's go ahead and refresh the page here. We have about me, and we have hello, I am a budding web developer. So H2, a little bit smaller than our H1 here. We can see the size difference. We have our P tag, which is our paragraph right here. And so the paragraph just has like your normal text. And if anyone is following along and needs me to stop for a moment so you can get caught up, like please let me know in chat. I would be more than happy to take a pause just to let you catch up. All right. And then we have this section right here. Let's add this one. So we're sectioning out our HTML. And inside of this section, we can see this section actually has a divider inside it too. So this div right here, can we have the cheat sheet, please? At the end of this, I'm pretty sure, and I'm happy to share out code if that's something that is doable, because I can add this to GitHub and just share it out at the end of this. So when the recording gets sent out, I don't know if a link can be sent out as well to the code. But you will have all of the code here in the recording as well. Yeah. Okay, so we won't have an image here. We could go get an image if we wanted to, maybe like um maybe go grab like a puppy image. But I think for right now, we'll go ahead and just let it kind of break a little bit. So if we refresh it, that's what a broken image looks like. We probably all seen it at one point in time where it's this little box, doesn't really show anything, but it says project one here. And what you can see is that it's actually using the alternative text here to kind of show like what was supposed to be there for that image, even though that image didn't display properly. So this one also has an identifier, which means this section is all about all of your projects, right? Whereas this one is about your about information, where you could add like a description, you could add maybe like your work history, different things like that, but like letting the world know who you are. This one is about the work you've done. So you have each div here, like you could have multiple projects if you wanted to, where like this is also a project. Maybe this is project two, description of the project. So you can have as many divs here. Now classes here are a lot like IDs. However, a class can be shared between different HTML tags. So we can see here we have two divs with the same class, and that's completely fine to have. And we'll just keep these two divs here like this. But if we refresh the page, we have project one, and now we have project two. Cool. We also have an H3. So the H3 you can see is a little bit smaller than the H2. The H2 is a little bit smaller than the H1. All right. And we'll just say project2.png. And then we have contact information. So let's add that in. Okay, and let's talk about this one. So the same as before, we have a section that this whole section is going to be about how to contact, right? So we're going to give it the ID of contact. With an HT of contact me, it has the email. Now for the href, you'll see mail to colon your name at example.com. Now, the great thing about this is if we were to refresh and actually click this will open up your default like mail application. And so if you have like that set up, you could, or whatever business is looking at your portfolio website, then they can actually click the link and have your email already placed inside their app that they use. It's sometimes a really nice thing to have. But you could add other things like a phone number, etc. here, or like social media. And one other thing that you might notice is inside of our section where we have this paragraph, inside the paragraph, we also have this link. So the paragraph is a display of block, which means our paragraph is going to go all the way across, span all the way across the browser here. Anchor links aren't block at all. So if we were to inspect the anchor link, let me move this out of the way. Then I believe that they are just inline. So that means that they're not gonna take up like full width. Um, So you can put things like that in nested inside each other. So like a P tag can contain like an A tag. If you have like you want to do some inline styling, sometimes you want to use a span tag. Span tags are a lot like A tags, but they don't link anywhere. They just allow you to modify whatever is in here. Like maybe you want an additional ID here, or a class here for styling. where it's going to style this one thing inside the paragraph. So spans are really good for that. All right, cool. So lastly, we have our footer down here. So I'm going to copy this and we're going to paste it in. Kind of like this. All right, so the footer, just like a normal footer, would be at the bottom. And this is where a lot of times you have your copyright information. Um, we'll put Bob there. Uh, so copyright information and other information as well usually goes into footers. And you can see that that's here at the bottom. Okay, so for HTML, we can see that without styling, it's kind of bland. I would not show any employers an HTML website that's supposed to be a portfolio website without any styling. Like you don't want to do that. Like you want to add a bit of styling to this. So styling is what's going to make it look really good. So I do have a certain way that I wanted to style it, hence the cheat sheet. It's a lot to remember, so it's good to kind of just prepare things beforehand. So we're gonna take things one step at a time and talk about it. So here we have the body. The body right here means that it and all of its children will automatically inherit all of the styling. So we can see like font family is going to be Arial, sans serif. Line height by default is going to be 1.6 height. That means like as we are kind of going like paragraphs, for example, are going to if they were to go like below, like if we had like a break or something like that, there'd be a bit of a line height there. Margin, we don't want any margin or padding starting off. So none of our elements are going to have that. Our background color is going to be a little shade. If you hover over it, it's it's like a very, very light shade of gray. And then here our color. So background color, that is like the entire background of our page. And then the color of our text is right here, which is kind of like a lighter shade of black. So if I save this and we refresh the page, let's take a look at how it looks now. And we can see just by doing that, the background color kind of got a little bit darker. Our text here got a little bit lighter. We have a little bit of height between our links here. There is no margins at all or padding, but we can still see there's a little bit of line spacing between this line height. And you can see it's kind of even throughout each of these elements here, outside of the links here. Cool. So by adding styling to the body tag, and if we look at our HTML structure, the body is a parent to all of these elements. That means everything inside this is going to inherit that styling, which is why so much of the page changed when we added that. So again, we changed font family to Arial. Now, by adding a comma in this is backup. So if for some reason Arial isn't installed or doesn't load up properly, then it will default to sans serif. Cool. So that would be the body of the page. Let's go ahead and work on the header. So this means that, let's go ahead and add this down here. And we'll go ahead and look at the background. So the background here, so this is a really light shade of gray, almost white, almost white. It's like a little shade darker than actual white. And then the color of the font is a lighter black. For the header, everything inside it, it's going to be a lighter shade of black for the background, and the color is going to be white for the text. So we're kind of reversing it a little bit. For the padding, we're going to add a little bit of padding based on the font, the root font. So one REM, I think, is like 16 pixels or something like that. Um, and then text align is center. So let's just see what that looks like when we refresh the page. And there we go. So what we can see here is we end up with a new background color. We have my portfolio right here. Our links are hard to see as of right now. It's going to change. We're going to make them into a line, and they are going to be a white color. We're not going to have these dots over here either. So we're going to style those separately, but we can see like we have a bit more of a header here to our page. Cool. And to go with the H1, we're going to add no margin around this. So let's add that. There we go. So because this is nested even further, we're going to remove the margin so we can see that it kind of shrunk a little bit. So, and also by having zero, just zero by itself, that means top, bottom, left, and right. You can also do top, bottom as one, and then like left and right as another if you have two. Or you could do all of them separately just by having margins. So this would be like top, bottom. I believe this one is left and right. Or you can say like margin left, etc. But we don't want any margin, so we're gonna just say zero there. Okay, so now what we're gonna work on is our nav. What we can see here for this one, this selector, that selector, and this selector, what we notice here is it has more than one selector. And this means that any H1 inside of a header, any UL inside of a nav, any LI that's inside of a UL, that's inside of a nav, any A that's inside of an LI, that's inside of a UL, that's inside of a nav. So when you see things like that, that is how we can kind of break up or be a little bit more specific on the elements. Because if I have any other H1s that I don't want, let's just say I want them to keep their margins, then as long as they're not in a header, they won't be targeted. It will only target the H1s inside of a header right here. Cool. So let's go ahead and grab our UL here. Now, for this one, what we're going to notice is for the UL, we're going to say list style none, and then padding 0. So with padding, we know we don't want any spaces in between. And right now we have a huge space right here. And then also the other thing is we don't want a list style, which means we don't want these bullet points right here. We don't want any kind of list style here. So if I refresh this, we can see the bullets are gone, and now it's just centered to the page. So there's no more spacing. We still can't hardly see it, so I'll highlight it so everybody can see it, but it's right here. Okay, so that is us kind of removing. So with ULs are unordered lists. We do have OLs as well, which are ordered list. Ordered list is ordering by numbers or ordering by alphabetical. So it starts out with numbers, and then if a OL is nested inside of another OL, then it will be alphabetical. So that's something to take note of with OLs. ULs are just unordered; they're bullet points. And then you can mix and match them too. You can have a UL nested inside of an OL, etc. So, all right, let's go here. So this is for the LI. So this is for the list item specifically. Now for the list item that's inside of UL, that's inside of nav. If we look at our HTML, that is all three of these. That's nested inside of our UL. That's nested inside of our nav right here. That's what we're targeting is these three things. And what we're saying here is we want to display them inline, which means we want them to be in a row instead of in a block. So right now they're kind of block, which means they're taking up their own space on the page. We want them to be side by side. And we also, when we make them side by side, we don't want them to be squished together. We want them to be separated from each other. So we're going to give it margin. And what we can see here with 10, so this is what I was talking about a second ago. This is top bottom. This is left and right. So left and right, 10 pixels on both sides. So we're going to push away from every element on both sides by 10 pixels. So if I save this and refresh the page, we now have this. So we have my portfolio and we have our links right here. Cool. All right, and let's go ahead and continue. So now we're going to add the white text to our anchor tags, our anchor links. So when we add this, these are for our anchor links. So it even shows you as a snippet in Visual Studio Code where how nested it is. But our A tag right here will be white color. So FFF is white. And then text decoration, none, which means we don't want it to turn purple for one when it's been active, like we've already clicked it. And then two, we want to make sure that it's white. So, and we don't want it to be underlined as well. So like these are underlined, we can see the underline underneath them. We don't want that kind of styling that comes automatically with your anchor tags. So we're going to remove those. That's called your text decoration. And we're going to add our white text. So if I save this and refresh the page again, now we can see our links a lot better. And another thing about our anchor links that I mentioned before, going back to this, # is targeting an ID. So if we add an anchor tag that has an href of an ID, that means we can click it and it takes us down to it. Now we don't have like a lot of page here. Let's do this. I'm just going to add a bunch of lorem text to this. That way we can have a little bit more of a scroll down. But if I click this, you can see like it takes me down to contact me. I guess we could just duplicate this a few times. There we go. Now we can't see it. So if I click contact, it takes me all the way down here to contact, just like that. Cool. All right, I'm gonna undo that. There we go. Cool. All right, so that gives us kind of like a nice header there with some navigation links. Okay, so for every section that we have, we're going to add a little bit of spacing in this. So what we can see here for a section is we're targeting every section on the page, regardless of ID, regardless of class. is going to grab every single section. So this one's going to be every single one of these is going to be targeted. The footer will not because it's not a section. And what we're adding here is a little bit of padding inside it. So what we can see about our sections here is that they're all the way over, kind of brushed up on the side there. When we add this and refresh, we can see that it adds a little bit more spacing there. It makes it a little bit easier to read, which is actually kind of nice. All right. Okay, so here's the first one with project. So let's go to this. Now, what we notice here is we have a period before project right here. The period means that any element with the class of project is going to have this styling right here. So that means if we go to our HTML here, we ended up making two. So here's one and here's the other one right here. So each one of these has a class of project, which means both of these divs are going to be targeted for our styling. And what are we doing here? So first of all, we're going to add a border to it. So if you remember the box model, we had that square. That's what we're going to be creating. It's going to be 1 pixel, which means it's going to be thin. It's going to be solid. And it's going to be a little bit of a darker white, kind of like our background, but a little bit darker. I think it's a little bit darker. It might be a little bit lighter, actually. No, it's darker. Okay. Um, and then we're gonna add a little bit more padding, even more so than our section. So our section is kind of pushed over, but it's gonna push our project over even more. So we'll have a little bit more padding. And then we're also going to have a little bit of margin on the left, which means we're going to push ourselves to the left a little bit more. So in other words, it's going to push it from the left, and then it's going to add a little bit of spacing for our project. And then we're going to have a white background to this. So when we refresh the page, it looks kind of like this. So what we can see is each section is block, so it spans. We would have an image here of like whatever project image we would want if we wanted an image. The title of that image, so like what are we calling the project, and a description of the project right here. We can see the padding is right here. So we gave it that kind of padding. So a little bit less padding on the side here, so about half. But we can see that it is moved over a little bit more than what's on the side here, which is good. And then we can see our little border right here that kind of borders the page. Kind of a nice shade there. And of course, our white background right here. So you could add as many projects as you want. You could just keep going. So if I was to add like another one, then now we have 3 on the page. Just like that. Save project 3. There we go. And we can click on contact, takes us down there. Kind of nice. Go to projects. All right, and then we have the footer here. So the footer is just targeting the footer. And what we can see here is we're aligning the text. So whenever something spans across the screen in like a block, then whenever you center text, it's going to put it directly in the center, and then it's going to kind of spread out left and right. So we're saying all text should be centered. We're going to add a little bit of padding in the text. We're going to give it a dark background. And we're going to make the color of the text white. And when we do that, we end up with our footer right down here. All right. And there we go. So this would be a portfolio website. So some takeaways on this is we have our HTML. We can we can basically create our document, but it is completely unstyled. We have headers, we have paragraphs, we have sections, articles, header, navigation, list. There's even tables that you can use. There is a lot of HTML. Some good resources for just seeing like different lists, etc. is W3 schools is good for like little cheat sheets, etc. So if you go to w3schools.com, they have HTML. So you can see all of the different kind of HTMLs you can use, all the different kinds of CSS you can also use as well. So it kind of gives you a good little cheat sheet there if you like it. And give me just a second. I'm getting a little bit of lag here. And so we can see HTML will create that, and then our CSS here will help style our HTML. All right. Is there any questions? Is there an HTML tag to call a different website to collect interactive information such as time, for example, or crypto prices? So that is actually based on two different things. That's mainly JavaScript. So JavaScript, it takes our website a little bit further and adds interactivity to our website. So if you're wanting to make something such as like something interactive, like JavaScript comes with time that you can just parse and put on the page and like redisplay it every X amount of seconds, like maybe every second, um, or every 60 seconds if you're just doing like minutes to hour. Uh, so that would be JavaScript, or they also have web scraping that you can do if you're trying to get like crypto prices. Web scraping is like being able to see into another website's HTML and grab information from it. But yeah, it's there's no HTML tag that I know of that can do things interactive like that. There are script tags, but the script tags just runs JavaScript. Can we launch Python scripts in HTML? Um, Not necessarily, or at least not directly. I'm sure there's ways that you can kind of go around it and do it. Usually Python is a backend language that you would have to be running a server possibly and use like a JavaScript to connect to it in order to run it. So there would have to be some uh you'd have to do some things, a little bit of work to get there. Like it is definitely possible to do that, but there's going to be a little bit of work to do it. It wouldn't be like a directly HTML thing. It would be more or less like JavaScript to like some sort of server that's running Python that can end up running the script. Yeah. Any other questions? Everybody prepared for the quiz at the end of this? I'm just kidding. There's no
Ha ha
quiz.
ha. Classic pop quiz. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in, for coding along, for asking some great questions. Feel like we like to have plenty of workshops and opportunities for people to come together and learn together. Holiday time gets a tiny bit slower, but keep an eye out on our website and our calendar of events in the new year, and we'll start 2025 off strong. So thank you so much again. Expect the recording to be sent via email early next week, and reach out if you have any further questions. We'd love to support you on your learning journey. All right, y'all. Have a great night. Take care.